Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bhairav Show. Hi, Tim. Welcome to the Bhairav Show again. Thank you for joining. I have Tim Kreling with me here. He's the founder of AI hiring platform OV. He has a rich experience in the field of consulting across pharma, finance, and chemicals. He has been a venture builder himself. He's built two companies in the past, and then he has built tons and tons of Gen AI solutions. So he has tremendous experience in how LLM works and how AI can be used in a real applied context. And yeah, I think from the introduction side, that's it from my side. But Tim, can you please introduce yourself? That'd be great.
First of all, thanks for having me. Really excited about this chat. And when you approached me the first time, I checked out your show and really liked the way you are interviewing people and also the topics you are covering in this show. So therefore, we're really excited.
Thank you.
Maybe to briefly share a bit more about myself, as you already mentioned, right? My background is in venture building and really data and AI consulting. Here, I think I was exposed to the whole value chain, kind of really starting at the core infrastructure level, building up data warehouses, including developing data governance approaches around this, up to the use case layer. Here, lastly, then obviously building a lot of Gen AI use cases, but also doing a lot of work in the BI space, robotic process automation space, and also process mining space. And I think this was a really nice really nice base for me to then now start OVI jointly with my best friend Chris.
All right, thank you very much. And you mentioned that you have a rich experience, right, across different domains, including consulting, right? And how has that experience actually helped you sort of scale OV as an AI-based hiring platform?
Yes, I would see two ways how this experience has enabled me in the end to build OV. First of all, obviously gaining the knowledge about Gen AI mostly while working on these projects. And my last employer was Unit 8, which was the first official partner of OpenAI in the DACH region. They were really hands-on, basically implementing with the OpenAI team Gen AI solutions in big enterprises. And this obviously helped me to understand how do I infuse LLM in a workflow, and also how to in general build applications going from user management to logging to database structures, execution environments, and all of these kind of things. So this was really the one pillar. And then the second pillar, which is also a really important one, while especially selling SaaS software in the end to big corporations, understanding the structure of these big enterprises, right? There is not only the business team, which obviously has their requirements around the specific software solution, but there's also the IT department, which wants to understand how can we integrate our data sources with your application. There's the compliance and legal department, which would like to understand how safe are you from a GDPR perspective, European AI Act perspective, which I think we will also talk about more later on. And then understanding these kind of personas which are involved in the procurement process of a new software is also something which really helps me now to then also have these discussions with the different departments in a company. So core Gen AI experience on the one hand, and then understanding of the corporate structures. I think these are the two pillars, or the two experience points which really help me now navigating things with OV.
Interesting. And what is that biggest problem that you basically felt from your experience that made you jump into the hiring domain, right?
Yes.
In terms of using AI?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation in hiring. So there's mostly only one of two extremes, right? You either have way too many candidates. So if you go for mid-level role, you receive especially in the Middle East, where we mostly operate with our agents, you receive an average like 500, 600 applications. Or on the other extreme, you have like a really niche or really senior position where you only really receive quite a few or only a few applicants, and therefore you have to go out and search. And this is exactly the reason why we have built with an OV2 agents. The one is called Milo, which is basically or which helps you to process this big application, these applications which are coming at you basically if you like open up a role. So Milo takes basically your job description, posts the job on LinkedIn, then develops a CV screening framework to analyze everyone which applies, analyzes everyone which applies, and then also has like an audio chat with the top performers. So really helps you to make sense out of this like big application pool. On the other hand, Sora, the problem which is solved here is the problem of not getting the right candidates or not getting enough candidates. So Sora also starts with you giving her a simple JD, and she's basically then structuring the requirements in terms of like what to look for. And then it's actively going out there and kind of headhunting for you and searching people for you and approaching people for you. So you find really niche profiles like a senior executive or something like this. So these two experiences, so you either have there are either too many applicants or too less applicants. And for each of these two situations, we have an agent in place, which basically supports you to resolve these data recruiting pains.
Okay. So I mean, it's well known that as you move up the career ladder, you realize that the number of applicants, they start reducing, right? Once you cross a particular number of years of experience, right? So how do you sort of explain OV to, let's say, a founder who's hiring or an HR leader, especially these two extremes, right, in the hiring process? For instance, let's say a unicorn startup that wants to hire the next chief marketing officer. To at the same time, the person would also be hiring, let's say, a front-end developer, right? So how do you sort of explain this to a founder that you have these two agents have opposite polarities in terms of capabilities, but at the same time, they're powerful enough to sort of scale?
Exactly. That's exactly the point, right? So we are now with the technology, at least in this domain, at a point where you really can see these agents as like real coworkers. So you get basically every job you are searching someone for, two recruiters at your hand, which you can work with as like a core recruiter or like a hiring manager. And then again, at the one hand, you have like these mid-level roles, the one you were also maybe touching on right now, where you just give a JD, so like a job description, not structured, nothing, to Milo. He takes it, formats it in a way that you can post it on LinkedIn. Then it's automatically posted on LinkedIn. Then Milo is developing on itself a CV screening framework with different requirements, which is then used from Milo again to analyze all CVs which are coming in. So it's basically he's basically building his own framework to analyze these CVs. And then as it's like a second stage in this funnel, you have the ability, or Milo has the ability to interview the top, let's say 30, 40, 50 candidates. And also based on a questionnaire which was developed and proposed by Milo. Everything can be customized as you please, but there's always like a suggestion which the agent is going with to start with. And but this is then basically the mechanism to go from 500 people to 5 in really a matter of days. If we look at the people, we start at the same point. You have a JD, so you have a job description, you give it to Sora. Sora understands, okay, these are the core requirements of this job. So we need someone who already has led multifunctional teams in the past, who has like sufficient knowledge of technology X, Y, Z, and is then going out in the market, mostly looking at LinkedIn and suggesting you profiles that seem like a great fit. and then helping you to headhunt these people by helping you to reach out to them via LinkedIn or via email or via phone. So Sora is also finding the contact details of these people, so you can directly reach out to them and do some maybe talent poaching from competitors or something like this. This is a really common use case.
Okay, interesting. And
all really highly autonomous, right? So you start with a
sure.
JD, hand it over, and then the agent is going its way.
Okay. And one of the advantages, right, of AI, it never gets bogged down, right? It just keeps running 24/7, right? So where do you think an AI approach, rather an AI-based hiring approach, is sort of genuinely better compared to humans in this entire hiring process?
Yes, I think looking maybe at at our agent Milo, right, where we look at this huge amount or huge volume of inbound applicants. Where do we see here the biggest value add of AI? I think this is really 3 points where Milo can add a lot of value. So let's assume you are a normal recruiter. You receive 500 applicants. What is happening now in reality? Recruiters are looking at the first 50, maybe the first 100, and then they basically the step. They decide with whom to move forward in these 50 from these 100 people, and then go further down the pipeline. And if no one is hired from these people, they look at the next 100.
Sure.
But they don't look at CV 200 to 500.
Correct.
And with AI, we give the recruiter the ability to scale their judgment, is what we always say, right? Because, and maybe we also go into this in much more detail later on as well, the recruiter can define these requirements in detail. So he can clearly say, I want this persona which has this in a CV, this in the CV, this in the CV, and then basically let the AI analyze these requirements across all CVs. So it doesn't really matter anymore if you were the 5th person who applied or if you were the 459th person who applied. So it's actually much, much fairer, and everyone gets seen in the process. Same approach for the interviews, right? A recruiter can only do a certain amount of scheduling with applicants, having the actual call with applicants, and then also preparing the data afterwards for review. And AI, obviously, as you also said already, can do this on any scale, right? So you talk to 50 applicants at a time, which again allows that you give more people in the application funnel a chance to make the case for themselves, which otherwise would just not get a chance because there is no time from the recruiter end. And then lastly, the third point, which is also, I think, a really interesting point to think about, is that in the way we at least do it in terms of generating this rich framework, how to evaluate people and what to ask people, you always have kind of an expert evaluating your CV or your answers, because a recruiter one day needs to recruit for a marketing position, at the other day needs to recruit for a coding position, next day sales, right? And obviously he can't be a deep expert in all of these fields. But the AI, obviously, as we all know, has quite a decent amount of knowledge in all these fields, and is therefore, I would make the statement here, much more capable to actually judge, is this a good fitting CV or not, and is this a good answer or not in the AI interview. And I think getting kind of an expert analyzing your CV compared to someone who's not a specialist in the specific field is the third point, which I would like to mention here. So giving more people the chance to be seen from a CV perspective, giving more people the chance to have an actual audio call, making their case for themselves, and actually having kind of an expert AI reviewing you instead of a more generalistic recruiter. I think these are the main leverages we see here.
Okay. You made a really good point, given the fact that with the introduction of AI as your first gate into a particular company, you're making the field much more, you're making it a level playing field, because now it goes through every CV compared to, let's say, a recruiter who might get fatigued, right, after seeing about 200 CVs. Now, when you want to sort of scale this, right, to an extent where it comes to different domains, how do you sort of translate the two extremes, right? On the initial side, yes, right, you have a lot of 3 to 5 years old, 5 years experienced candidates, but on the other extreme side, especially the C-level executives, all right, how do you sort of look at it? How was the sort of AI trained to handle it in a more responsible manner, especially the cream of the cream candidates?
Yes. I mean, a lot of different thoughts on this one, but
Mhm.
I think it's like as core, we have this like CV screening framework in place which we already talked about now a few times. And I think it's really interesting to go maybe here a bit deeper. So the way we set up things is basically we look at a job description. We have also like an internal proprietary data set, which we look at in terms of like what kind of jobs are most likely coming with what kind of tasks, what's the leadership level involved, and these kind of data points. And this is informing the CV screening framework. So the AI looks at the job description, the key responsibilities, must-haves, nice-to-haves mentioned there, and is then creating this framework. And this framework um, consists out of different requirements. So requirement number A could be has led a team of more than 5 people in the past. The next requirement could be has had like P&L ownership. The next one could be like has led a big transformation project in the energy sector, whatever it might be, right? And these are obviously only high level requirements, and all in order to make this really an analysis which is in the end also transparent for the recruiter and the applicant, and reproducible in a way that you can always run this again and you only have like a really small amount of deviation of the final score. We always enrich every requirement with context clues and red flags. Means you have the core requirement, and then we add 5 context clues and 5 red flags in terms of like things which you can look in, or which you can search for in the CV, which would validate or which would provide evidence that this requirement was fully fulfilled, partially fulfilled, not at all fulfilled. And this is obviously giving a much, much richer context on a requirement by requirement basis for the AI to come up with then an individual score for the requirement. And what then happens is each requirement is also getting a different weight. So you can assign a high, a medium, or a low weight on a requirement basis, which again helps to prioritize different requirements, again, kind of close to nice to haves and must haves. And this is then used to compute the final score with these different weights in order to have then like a final score which can be displayed and which is reflecting all these different requirements with their different weight based on the rich context created for each requirement. And I think this is really the core engine which allows us to have like these reproducible scores. So you can run a score, you can run a CV against the framework 10 times and the deviation is really low. And this high level of transparency why a score was given and which evidence was basically taken to derive the score. Did this make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Then what advice do you give for all these, let's say, HRs who just upload CVs of candidates that they get into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT whether it's good or not?
I mean, I think that's exactly the point, right? So if you don't have this framework, you ask it
Yeah,
10 times and you will get 10 different scores or
true.
evaluations, whatever. So this is for sure the first point. Obviously, from a second perspective, from a compliance perspective, also maybe not the best idea to share the data
Yeah.
with ChatGPT directly. We, for example, do PII stripping before we send over to the. So we
Okay.
remove any kind of personal data, also in order to mitigate bias. And obviously, we provide them the analysis in a way where we have it by requirement basis, which again allows also, which is also something demanded by the European AI Act, which again allows to also share the evaluation with the applicant, right? Because every applicant has the right to request an insight how the AI
Sure.
did judge him or her. And with this, you can quite easily give him the evidence and the reasoning why this has happened, which is not really the case with ChatGPT and having these like thoughts, I would say.
All right. And sorry.
And obviously, you have much nicer data pipelines, right? So in ChatGPT,
Yeah, sure.
everything, and with our systems, it's just fully automated, and you don't need to
Correct.
upload 50, 500 CVs, right?
Correct.
It's just a perspective to look at it.
Sure. And yeah, in the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that your OV also sort of calls right, the candidate sort of does voice-based interviews as well, right? What is the let's say in terms of the the quality compared to 3-4 years, right, in the past? Now it's been really good and amazing, right? What do you think? AI-based or rather audio-based AI does very well in these cases, right? And where do you think that thin line must be sort of put in where it's not supposed to decide everything on its own?
Yes, yeah. I mean, again, touching a bit on the point which I mentioned already, right? Allowing the recruiter to scale his resources and capabilities, right? So you can tell Milo exactly what kind of questions you would like to ask in these interviews, and then Milo goes out and talks to 50 people. Then a recruiter can go through all of them and understand, for example, a classic one is salary expectations. So let's say you've talked to 50 people, 30 of them have salary expectations which just don't match the budget of the role. And therefore you have this pretty simple data point directly at your hand, and you understand, okay, these 30 people most likely are not a good fit for this specific position. Also, obviously, again, giving more people the chance to make their initial case is something really, really important. And as you mentioned, right, the especially voice AI systems have developed so quickly now and are so working in such a like mature manner right now, which is kind of impressive, because we saw this like whole evolution. As we started, we had like a duration of maximum of 5 minutes to do these calls. Now we have interviews going for over an hour, which is really, really quick development. And you give also the applicant the chance to ask things about the company. So we create also, again, a lot of context for the agent around what is the company, what is the role about, and some other questions. And then every applicant gets the chance to ask all of these questions to the agent without the need to writing a recruiter or like annoying anyone else. Therefore, having a quite lean way to also answer questions from an applicant about the company. So again, scaling or having a nice mechanism in place to gather data on scale for a recruiter, which can then use this data to make a fairer decision, because obviously you generate a rich data set for each applicant. And based on this rich data set, you can much, much better decide who to move forward with compared to just looking at the CV, especially now in an age where obviously the CV is becoming less meaningful as everything is also highly polished by LLM itself,
Exactly.
right?
True.
So scaling data gathering, giving applicants the chance to ask questions as well, and synthesizing this data then on a recruiter side. I think this works well, right?
All right. And when the AI calls calls a candidate, right? How do you sort of make sure that the candidate doesn't feel like they are being interviewed by a machine, right?
Yes.
So how does that happen? Is it the emotional aspects that come in, or the sort of the language that's used?
Yes. I mean, first of all, for us, these like interviews are not really like in the real interviews. These are more like get to know audio chats, screening, not like a test situation where you have to perform like it's about your life. It's rather like a get to know call. We call it always audio chat in the invite emails, which Milo is sending then to the people. And we basically share with them a few things in terms of like, this is a chance for you also to ask questions, which we just talked about, right? You can do this at any time. So you can do this right now. You can do this on Sunday night, on Monday morning, whenever you would like to do it. You don't have to do back and forth scheduling with any recruiter. And you basically can directly go for your spot. And what really helps is we always send also a link to a demo interview. And here, the person can go in, and for, let's say, 95% of the applicants, this is the first time doing an AI interview. They can go in, they can ask questions. How will this go? What will the questions be? What is the format? How does it feel like talking to an AI? And this is really making applicants much, much more comfortable in going in these such calls, and making them actually so comfortable that in most of the chats, or in most of the chats, which are then the actual audio chat, at the end, people are saying, "Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed talking to you. Have a great rest of the day." And also people, or like the recruiters then talking to applicants in later stages, are sharing often with us that the people really enjoyed the interaction with the AI, and were also fascinated by this whole thing. Obviously, there are also some people which are not feeling comfortable yet, I would say, with these interviews. But this is, to be also frank and also interesting to see, quite a really small amount of people which are not comfortable going for this audio chat, as we call it.
Nice. And you were mentioning about bias, right? In quite a lot of the topics that we discussed. One of the aspects is that when you look at different cultures, from Asia to Middle East to Europe to the American continent, you realize that the way a particular CV is perceived through by different recruiters varies, right? And the LLMs have also been trained on data predominantly, right, that's available to a certain section of, you know, society, right? How do you sort of balance it out in terms of making sure that one particular section of, let's say, candidates do not get marginalized, right? Is
Yeah.
it a lot of, let's say, additional training that you do, or you sort of set in guardrails there? So what exactly happens?
A few different layers which we have in place here, right? So we have the PII stripping, which we already
Correct.
talked about. So the LM has no access to age, gender, nationality, and these kind of things. So this really helps make this like a neutral looking thing. Obviously, from a formatting perspective, everything is passed anyway, so you can't see really if this is like a well-formatted CV or not well-formatted CV. Then obviously this rich framework which we generate for the CV screening is also really important, to have like clear requirements to look at, and not any requirements which might come up because the LLM has some bias in its own training data. So this is also really guardrailing the experience. Obviously, things like temperature should always be at 0 in these cases as well. And then looking at the AI audio chats, here we don't have as the word is already implying, any video which we analyze, and we also analyze any like accent in the voice, for example. So we really only look at the transcript. So it's not a voice analysis; it's only like a transcript-based analysis, which again helps us to mitigate bias around accent, for example.
Okay, fair enough. And coming to the last question of mine, right? AI is already reaching a stage where it can literally handle end-to-end recruiting process, more or less, you know, maybe in a few years, right? So what do you think should be sort of set straight in terms of the things that AI must never do, especially without human approval, through compared to right from screening the application all the way to an offer that's been given?
I mean, obviously, the AI shouldn't like hire anyone and shouldn't also reject anyone automatically.
Okay.
I mean, we have clear human in the loop model, so no one is moving to any other stage if you are not actively requesting this as a person. So there's always a human in the loop when someone is forwarded into the next step, or also then in the end rejected or hired. And obviously these final decisions should ever stay with the human. And obviously, right, as mentioned, we have these audio chats as like the last layer from our end, and then you have these cultural fit discussions where you go more on like a personal level. You obviously have even more technical deep dives and these kind of things. And this is really where the recruiter or hiring manager applicant interaction is most valuable. And I think and I think these AI agents really also help the recruiters to have exactly more time for these more valuable interactions at a later stage with the candidates, which are just most likely the better or best fits for the roles based on the requirements of the role and the restrictions coming with it. So yeah, to sum it up, the final hiring decision and the final rejection of any candidate should be certainly with the human.
All right, yeah. Okay, then. Thanks a lot, Tim. I think that's the last of the questions. And yeah, thank you very much for taking the time out to come on the show. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Thanks for having me. This was great. Really
Thank you.
enjoyed having that.
Thank you very much.